Do you know that feeling at the end of a year when you sit with yourself and realize not much has actually changed? The goals are familiar, the intentions were real, the motivation at some point was genuine. But somehow 12 months passed and you are more or less in the same place. Same patterns, same hesitations, same version of yourself, making the same quiet promises about next year. This is one of the most common human experiences in the world and one of the least talked about, honestly, because it carries a specific kind of shame. Not the shame of obvious failure, but the shame of invisible stagnation, of being someone who knows better, wants better, and still somehow ends up here again. If that feeling is familiar to you, this is for you. Not because something is wrong with you, but because the reason it keeps happening is almost never what people think it is. Most people explain their stagnation the same way. They say they lack discipline or consistency or that life got in the way, and those things might be true, but they are not the root. The root is something quieter, something most people never examine. They keep repeating the same year, not because they are lazy, not because they are incapable, but because they never actually decided to have a different one. That sounds simple, maybe even harsh, but stay with it for a moment. There is a difference between wanting something to be different and deciding it will be. Wanting is passive. It hopes, it waits. It imagines a version of next year that somehow corrects itself. Deciding is something else entirely. Deciding means identifying exactly what has to change, not just what you want more of. And most people never get to that part. They set goals. They do not identify what has to stop. They write down what they want to add to their life. They never examine what they need to remove. And so January becomes February, becomes June, becomes December, and the cycle begins again. Here is a pattern that plays out in almost every case of repeated stagnation. The same routines produce the same results. But instead of changing the routines, most people try harder within them. More effort, more pressure, more guilt when the effort fades. Think about the last time you tried to break a pattern in your life. What did you change? If the answer is mostly your attitude or your motivation level, then nothing structural changed. And structure is what determines behavior over time, not attitude, not inspiration, not how badly you want it on January 1st. Motivation is real, but motivation is weather. It comes and goes. Structure is climate. It shapes what grows regardless of how you feel on any given day. The people who stop repeating the same year are not more motivated than you. They are not more disciplined in some innate permanent way. They change the structure. They change what their environment asked of them. They change the defaults, and the results followed. There is a concept in behavioral science called identity-based change. The idea, made widely known by James Clear, is this. Most people focus on outcomes, what they want to have or achieve. A smaller group focuses on process, what they will do, but the deepest, most durable change happens at the level of identity, who they decide to become. Because every action you take is a vote for a type of person, and over time, the votes accumulate. The person who goes for a walk when they do not feel like it is casting a vote for someone who moves their body. The person who writes one paragraph when they have no inspiration is casting a vote for someone who creates. The person who has one honest conversation they have been avoiding is casting a vote for someone who does not hide. None of these actions feel significant in the moment. That is the point. Repeated stagnation is not caused by one big failure. It is caused by thousands of small moments where the vote went the wrong way. And those moments are invisible, which is why people keep being surprised by where they end up. So how do you actually break the cycle? Not with more motivation, not with a better planner or a more ambitious vision board, with 3 specific shifts. Shift 1, stop measuring by years. A year is too long a unit of change. It gives too much room for drift. Too many weeks where nothing is being tracked. Too many months where the goal is technically still alive, but receiving no real attention. Break your year into quarters, 13 weeks. Each quarter has one primary focus. Not 10 goals, 1. At the end of 13 weeks, you have real data. Did this area of your life move? If yes, what drove it? If no, what was actually in the way? 13 weeks is short enough to stay honest, long enough to see real results. And the discipline of choosing one focus forces a kind of clarity that annual goal setting never does. Shift 2, identify your pattern of exit. Every person who repeats the same year has a specific moment where they exit their intentions. Not a vague loss of motivation, a specific, repeatable moment. For some people, it is the first week that gets busy. For others, it is the first time they miss a day and feel like the streak is broken. For others, it is the moment when progress slows and the early excitement wears off. Your pattern of exit is unique to you, and until you identify it precisely, you will keep hitting it without seeing it coming. Think back to the last 3 times you stopped something you intended to continue. What did those moments have in common? Where were you in the process? What happened right before you stepped away? That pattern is the real obstacle, not your discipline, not your character. That specific moment, in that specific condition, is where the year gets lost. And once you see it clearly, you can prepare for it. Not to eliminate it, but to have a plan for what you do when it arrives, because it will arrive. And the difference between people who break the cycle and people who repeat it is not that the hard moment does not come. It is that they expected it and moved through it anyway. Shift 3, make the past year honest. This is the most uncomfortable one. Most people do a very selective review of the year. They remember the intentions clearly. They are much vaguer about the actual behavior. If you want to stop repeating a year, you have to be willing to look at it with precision, not to feel bad, to learn. Write down 3 to 5 things you intended to do this year that did not happen. Then for each one, write one honest sentence about why. Not the comfortable version, the true version. Not, I did not have time, but I had time and I spent it on things that were easier. Not, I was not consistent, but I stopped when it got uncomfortable and I told myself I would restart. The honest sentence is the information. The comfortable sentence is what keeps the cycle going. Most people are incredibly gentle with their self-assessment and incredibly harsh with their self-judgment. They never look clearly at what actually happened, but they feel terrible about it. Looking clearly is kinder in the long run, because clarity is what creates change. Guilt without clarity just creates another year of the same weight. Now imagine this. It is 12 months from now. You are sitting with yourself again, but this time the feeling is different. Not perfect, not everything resolved, but genuinely different. The project exists, rough, real, and in the world. The relationship you wanted to build is closer. The habit that has been on the list for 3 years is now just part of how you live. Not because you found more discipline, not because life became easier, but because this time you did not just want a different year. You decided to build one. Deliberately, structurally, one honest quarter at a time, one vote at a time for the person you are becoming. That version of the year is available to you. It is not reserved for people who have more resources, more talent, or more time. It is available to anyone willing to stop repeating the comfortable patterns and start making different choices at the level of structure. You have lived the same year before. You know exactly what that feels like. You also know somewhere that you are capable of a different one. The question is not whether you have what it takes. You do. The question is whether you are willing to look honestly at what needs to change, and then change it. Not next year, starting now. Even from where you are, even with what you have, even today. If this landed for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you are sitting with this right now, working through it in your own life, I am rooting for you. Even from afar,